Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Hello Velocity podcast. Thank you for joining again. And today I want to continue our conversation about work life balance, but today we're going to look at it from a slightly different angle, and that angle being what to do when life happens to your plans. It's that idea of life is going to continue happening. We have unexpected changes, challenges, things that pop up all the time, every day that we cannot control. And what do we do when this happens? How can we better navigate change? How can we better navigate those unexpected things that pop up and might ruin our plans? And I want you to start thinking about how do you handle those situations? And we'll go through some specific prompts for you to think about how this looks for you and what to do differently to make it easier on you. And we want to keep in mind here that the only thing inevitable in life is change. Honestly, we've seen it over and over again, yet us as humans tend to be so resistant to change and unexpected things popping up. If you take away nothing else today, I want you to consider that maybe these things aren't so bad after all. Maybe they don't have to be so scary. Yes, it's super inconvenient most of the time, and yes, it's going to change our plans, it's going to maybe throw us off track. But how do we start thinking about these as maybe some sort of blessing in disguise? Maybe it saved us from something else. Maybe it helped us come up with a better plan instead. So, how do we be more open to the inevitable, unexpected things that are going to continue happening? And I like to use the expression that life happens, right? Because we always use that expression, or a lot of us use that expression that, I was just so busy, life keeps lifing, and things are happening to us. But let's think about how things are happening for us. And a ton of these examples, again, these can come up all the time with clients and with myself as well. You might get sick, your kid might get sick, someone might delay your deadline because you're waiting on them until the last minute, or they get you their piece of a project late. Not to mention all the different consequences and things happening in the world that we can't control, whether it's economically, politically, but even just the weather, right? We've had a lot of strange weather occurrences of different hurricanes and then even fires and things. And we can't control these, and we can't expect to control these. But what we can control is how we react to these things that pop up and might ruin our day, or feels like it ruins our day, our week, our month, whatever it is. A great example of this happening to myself was a few months ago when I was prepping for the launch of this podcast. I'd prepped and blocked a few days on my calendar so that I could record my first few episodes. I think it was 2 half days that I had blocked, and maybe over 2 weeks as well, just to give me some buffer before the launch, because I also didn't know how long it would take to be editing these episodes. And that is exactly when I got the flu. And not just, any run-of-the-mill cold, but it was, of course, the type that lingered in my sinuses, and I sounded so awful for, I think it was about 3 weeks. And I really, really tried and thought about pushing through and recording my first few episodes when I was physically starting to feel better, but I still sounded horrible and sick and nasally. I actually sat down right here to start recording my first episode, and I was not feeling great. I didn't sound great. And I just stopped and asked myself, what am I doing this for? This was a made up deadline that I made up for myself. It's a fun creative project. And it didn't feel fun in the moment when I was trying to force it. I knew I wouldn't have the energy I wanted or needed to do something like this. And I was just forcing myself to go through it because it was what I had planned. I'd scheduled out when I wanted the launch to happen, how long the season would go, and all of these things that felt like if I made one change at the beginning, it would throw everything off course. But really, did that matter? And again, I know a lot of us don't always have the luxury to be able to choose our own deadlines for a lot of things, but a lot of the time we do. A lot of times we do have more flexibility than we give ourselves credit for, and a lot of times we are creating our own deadlines or commitments. We tend to be harsh on ourselves with these deadlines too when we've created them ourselves. So consider maybe where you've been doing this in your life or in your work and how you can be a bit more flexible. So I usually see this happening about 3 different ways when it comes to my clients of how they handle the unexpected, or when life happens to their plans, what do they do when their best laid plans aren't working anymore? First is the blow up your plan. And it's ironic because usually the people that blow up their plans are the ones who are most excited about their plans. And they're so excited about these plans that they become super attached to the plan and exactly what it has to look like. So that if anything throws it off course, especially towards the beginning, it becomes this all or nothing mentality for them. Either it has to go perfectly or it can't go at all. So they completely blow it up and avoid it or don't work on it at all. And then sometimes if this is an external deadline, then it becomes oh, you wait until the last minute and then you just power through it at the end because you were resisting it the whole way along because you couldn't go according to your perfectly laid plans. Another way I see this coming up is the people who decide to just completely start over. So maybe they were working on a plan, again, something happened, someone got sick, some deadline got pushed or changed, and they decide they just need to completely start over. And this is one of those that can be so exhausting for people because you are starting from scratch when really a lot of times you've already made some progress on it. You've already learned some things that you can apply and just pivot or adjust as needed. But a lot of times we just start over because, again, you're so attached to that plan and it has to go a certain way that when something kind of steers you in a slightly different course, it's hard to see how the rest of the plan should change. It can be hard to see how the rest of the plan should change. So then you just go backwards and start over from the beginning and create a whole new plan. So these people are putting in probably twice as much work, right? Because they're starting over and they aren't giving themselves credit for how much they've already done, how much they've already created. And instead of, adjusting a plan accordingly or changing it 25%, they are trying to change it 100%, which again is a lot more work. Then there are the people who, when unexpected changes pop up, when their plans get thrown off course, they just stop and wait for the perfect conditions to start back up. And I know I've been guilty of this before too, thinking that everything has to be just right in order for you to move forward on a project. And for a lot of us, it ends up usually just being an excuse for not starting. So these are usually the people who have maybe not even started the plan, but they've created this path of how they want everything to go. And then they need all these very particular circumstances to all happen at the same time in order for them to get started. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah, we do this a lot, thinking that all the circumstances have to be perfect for us to be able to move forward on something. And usually, when this is the case, it's just you're afraid to get started. The thing to remember if you're one of these people that does this is that there may never be perfect timing for you to start a project. In fact, most projects never have perfect timing. It's more you just have to get started and adjust along the way and be flexible and adaptable and figure it out as you go. And I know that sounds super scary. Trust me, I get it. And it's a lot easier than it sounds. The thing to know about all of these tendencies and habits that we have around things throwing us off course is that they are delaying our progress. They are keeping us stuck, they're slowing us down, and they're making us less adaptable as a leader and as an individual. Honestly, we could be doing a lot more and creating a lot more and be moving forward on our projects and goals a lot quicker. What we need to do is learn to be more flexible and accept that not everything is in our control. I know that sounds scary. I know it goes against our human nature that we want to be able to control everything. But once you accept that you can't control it, everything gets a lot easier for you. There'll be less resistance to you and change, and you will find the ability to be flexible and adaptable a lot easier. So let's go through some specific techniques that you can do to start practicing this now. One of my favorite ways for both myself and my clients to be more adaptable to change and have more realistic deadlines is by what I call adopting a shit ton of wiggle room in our deadlines. Yes, I know it sounds silly, and that's purposeful because a lot of the times we are taking things way too seriously and we are so committed to these deadlines and we are so ambitious with our deadlines that we think, oh, yeah, this project will only take me 2 weeks. That's great. I'll get it to you by the end of the week next week. And then we stop and we look at our calendar and we realize, oh, wow, I already have a lot of other commitments this week. And then you get halfway through the project and you get sick, someone else gets sick, a deadline is missed, et cetera, all the things that come up along the way. And then you're behind by a week, right? It can happen just like that. It can happen so quickly. So what you want to practice is putting a shit ton of wiggle room in your deadlines, maybe adding an extra 10 to 20% to whatever you think it'll take you to get done with the deadline. Add that wiggle room in there so that as things come up, you'll already have an extra buffer in your timeline. You'll be okay. You'll have that buffer in there for you to be able to get it done. And then, hey, sometimes you might actually finish early. Imagine that. That would be exciting, right? And another quick gut check you can do in the moment when you're setting deadlines is just ask yourself, is this realistic? And I ask this of my clients all the time when they're committing to something new, because again, a lot of times we're overly ambitious and we want to commit to all the things now and we want to get everything done immediately. So it really helps you think about what type of wiggle room that you need in advance before setting a deadline as well. Another one of my favorite techniques here is thinking about what is your bare minimum schedule versus your ideal day schedule. And this could be on a day-to-day basis or your weekly schedule. But thinking about, okay, if you're sick, if something comes up and you could only focus on work for 2 hours a day for this week, what are the 3 things you need to get done? What are those really high top priorities that you need to be focused on no matter what? So that would be your bare minimum schedule or bare minimum priorities. And then think about on the other side, what's an ideal day or an ideal week? What are all the other things that you'd like to get done, that you want to keep moving, projects you want to keep moving forward on, but they don't have to be done exactly today. This is super helpful for me when I'm sick. And again, I have a business myself, and my business is just myself at the moment. So when I'm sick, my business is out of commission. So for me, I have my clear priorities of, okay, if I'm sick and I only have maybe 2 hours of work in me for the day because I'm so low energy, I think about, okay, I'm going to be focused on any client meetings I have, any follow-ups or things I need to send to current or prospective clients. Those are really my top 2 priorities. Everything else can wait. I even started doing this with my workout routines. So recently I've been lifting weights at home in my garage, and I can kind of break up my workout routine to have different chunks of what's my bare minimum. You know, if nothing else, if I'm feeling low energy, I can at least spend 5 minutes going out there and lifting some weights, right? Do the bare minimum. And then I have essentially a mid-tier of, okay, on an average day, I'm usually going to be able to do more. I'm spending about 20 minutes out there. And then I even have a higher tier of, okay, if I'm super energized, I'm feeling really good, I'm going to add a little bit more. Then I add on some abs or cardio, and it's an extra 10 minutes there. Something like that it just makes it so much easier so that when I'm not feeling great or I'm feeling low energy and I'm like, oh, do I really want to go work out? I then ask myself, can you do it for 5 minutes? And usually the answer is, hell yes, I've got 5 minutes in me, but that's it, right? But most of the time, on average, I'm doing that mid to high level tier. I'm getting most of the workout done. But again, it just gives me that wiggle room that I need so that when I'm on a low energy day or I'm really in a hurry because I have an early client meeting and I really only have 5 minutes, I can still do a workout and it doesn't throw me off my routine too much. I don't lose the habit of working out. So think about where you could apply something like this, where you need that kind of bare minimum, whether it's a workout, whether it's your work day. Think about what that bare minimum is. If you did nothing else, what will have the highest impact in your day, in your workout, in whatever it is. And then think about what are all those extra things that will help you go further, and then maybe even a higher level tier. And this also helps because a lot of times when we're thrown off plans, when we're not feeling great, it's hard for us to think through what a new plan or a new priority should be. So it's essentially like we're creating our plan B for ourselves to make it super easy to choose something else instead of doing nothing. And another technique I want you to think about is really a mindset shift when it comes to change. Again, I mentioned this earlier that a lot of us are super resistant to change, so that when it does come, it completely wipes us out, right? We give up on our plans, or we delay them, or we just stop moving forward and get distracted or maybe move to something else. So, what I want you to start thinking about from a mindset perspective is what is in your control versus what's not in your control, first of all. Start approaching different situations from that lens, and it'll help honestly take some burden off your shoulders to realize that not everything is in your control and you can only control so much. And then the rest of it that we can't control, we need to be intentionally responding to it. And a mindset and metaphor that has really helped me with this is thinking about change and life happening to you. Thinking about it as if you're trying to surf. Okay, you're in the ocean, and those waves that keep coming at you, think of those as change, things out of your control. The ocean is definitely out of our control. We can't control the waves coming at us, but what we can control is how we're responding. Are you getting up on the surfboard? Are you trying to ride these waves and be with the waves and move together with the waves? Or are you trying to resist them? Are you trying to hold up a board to stop them? That's not going to work. It's going to cause a lot more work for you, a lot more strain, potentially some pain for you. So we want to make things easier for yourself. So that metaphor has helped me a lot, just having that visual idea. When things are coming at you that you can't control, how are you reacting to it? Are you riding with it or are you resisting it? So summarizing what we talked about today is reminding yourself that the only thing inevitable in life is change. So we need to be more flexible, more adaptable, and more open to change in order to be able to respond as we'd like to and not be taken out completely when change happens. When you're committing to something new, ask yourself, is this realistic? Also, practice having some buffer room or a shit ton of wiggle room in your deadlines to give you that buffer that we all need because life is going to continue to happen to us and we need to adjust appropriately. And lastly, again, we need to be willing to let go of things that are not in our control and instead be able to respond intentionally to these things and not just fall into our old habits. That's it for today's episode. I hope you are starting to think differently about change and unexpected things coming your way. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.